Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Alice on, who is a presenter and producer focusing on history. Hi Alice.
Hello.
How are we?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Great to be on.
Good to have you on. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you actually do, Alice?
Yeah, sure. So I work at a company called History Hit, and we are a subscription channel, and we only produce podcasts and documentaries and articles, but it's only history. So we're really focusing in on the past. And my role there is a presenter, and I'm also producing and writing and researching and looking for documentaries all the time. Another thing, I also do the TikTok accounts and the Instagram accounts. And in my spare time, outside my normal job, I'm also do some writing. So I write a book at the moment, which is all about James Gilray, who's one of the greatest artists in British history, even though no one knows who he is. But I'm about to change that.
Yeah, I was going to lie then and go, oh yeah, but I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, well, I'm on a mission to bring him back to be a national hero. So you'll know about him soon.
Cool. So why history then? Where did this love come from?
Well, I've always loved history. I know people always say that, but I always have. And I'm really determined, I think, I've sort of seen a gap that people in TV and documentary making and documentaries that I see on the TV. And I just think that they could be a lot better. And I think because I've had this kind of prior interest in history and I've got this kind of interest in media, and I can see that there's a gap, and that's kind of fueled my passion for it. So that's what I'm ploughing on with at the moment, really.
So have you got a specific time period you love? Because like I'm a massive history, but is there a specific part of history that you love?
People always ask me this, and I feel like I should have a question. And it's not that I don't love history, I definitely do, but I read stuff, I have to do so many different things at work all the time in all different parts of history. And the more I read about things that I even don't know about, I just find it so interesting and so surprising and fascinating. So I wouldn't like to say that I have got a favourite period at all, because I think that would be dishonest. And I think it's also fine not to have a favourite period.
Yeah, of course it is.
But I mean, it's almost like there's so many parts of history which I've never learnt about at school and university, even though I'd spent 4 years at uni studying it. And it's these parts that I perhaps find more interesting just because they're such an unknown to me, and I'm hungry for more.
And so for you in this job, it's sort of like a mashup between two jobs. You've got the history side, you've got the TV, presenting, that sort of side. What sort of came first? And did you direct your education towards one of them and then sort of fell into the other side of it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I've definitely always really liked history, and at school I was really into history. But I suppose in hindsight, that the job I've ended up at the moment, it makes sense that I've ended up here because, I've done a lot of kind of theatrical things in my past. So I performed when I was younger at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and I put on a fringe show, and which was a kind of comic historical satire show at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was kind of very media heavy. And I also, when I was at university, I started a magazine, which was about history and about a kind of satirical take on history as well. But that, it kind of developed my editing and writing skills and Photoshop skills, that kind of thing. So when I didn't really know when I joined History Hit that I would be so TV focused, but I kind of that's kind of come a bit later that I've really focused in on that. But I think it was the perfect job for me at the time because, it kind of involved history, but also writing and the potential to be editing and the potential for theatrical things as well. So I think I was lucky that I fell into a job which was probably a perfect fit.
And so did you, after uni, go straight into History Hit, or did you do anything else in the meantime?
So I left uni and I I was part of the Royal Navy at uni. So I did a Baltic operations over the summer.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, which was totally not related. But yeah, I spent about miserable month trying to apply for jobs, not knowing what to do. Everyone else was becoming a lawyer. That's what history students tend to do. And I just emailed loads and loads of kind of history companies, emailed History Hit, and they I just did work. I was the intern for a month, so I did work experience, and we clicked. We got on really well, and I'm still here.
So how long have you been there for? How long has History Hit been going for? Because I don't think it's something I've actually heard of that recently.
Yeah, so it's only about 3 years old. I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's like under 5 years old anyway. And I've only been there for a year and a half, so not that long really. But yeah.
So what's an average day like for you there? Getting involved with different things, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's really varied, and that's part of the perks of it, I should say. Sometimes I'm writing a script on, I don't know, the history of the Eleanor Crosses, some sort of medieval mark on the landscape, or I'm editing a documentary that I've just filmed, or I might be making some content for social media. Or we might be throwing some ideas around about what kind of documentaries we want to be focusing on that year, looking at all the anniversaries that are coming up that particular year. Or I might be out the office, perhaps doing a recce of a site. Yesterday I went to the British Motor Museum and had a look around because we might do some stuff on the Land Rover there. And tomorrow I'm going to the Florence Nightingale Museum in London, in Waterloo, which I've never been to before, which is really exciting. But we're filming a documentary there, a tour. So I'll be out and about tomorrow. So yeah, it's really varied and it changes all the time, which is really nice.
So what was it about older history documentaries that made you think, oh, do you know what, I can do that better? Because recently I've seen a couple on sort of even Netflix, and they've just really stepped it up, and there's a higher production value in there. Is that what you're kind of thinking of and looking at doing?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Netflix, I feel like Netflix are kind of, changing the world of TV. So
they are, yeah.
They're good people to follow. And, History Hit's a subscription channel and Netflix is a subscription channel. Our tagline, our like classic tagline is History Hit, the Netflix for history, which people seem to understand what that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just my experience of watching TV on the BBC, watching TV on our actual television. And so often they're just so thin on content. And for example, they'll go, I feel like presenters have this habit of, they'll go into an amazing museum or gallery or cathedral or something, and they'll say, wow, this is amazing. Like, just imagine what people must have felt to be here. They just don't say anything. And I think now I've noticed it really gets on my nerves. And I really try and be really rich on content, because I think that's what people want and like. And I've seen from my work that people do like that and they respond quite well to it. And the other thing is that I think they're just a bit boring. They're a bit dull. We've seen Top Gear and the success of that, where basically there's, the topic of cars and millions of people watch it, even though they have no interest in cars. And there's no reason why that can't be utilized for history. So those are the kind of things that I want to bring into mainstream history.
That's it. And I think it's really important that people know about history. I think it's massively kind of undervalued, and sort of you do it a bit at school, but nobody, very few people enjoy it, or they would say they enjoyed it at school. I'm probably one of the odd ones out, but yeah, I don't think we learn enough about history, because you can relate to modern day events once you know what's happened in the past.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, it completely defines I think it completely improves how you can view the modern world, because it's, what I was going to say is that you're right that lots of people do love history, and there is a massive potential audience, but we're not getting through to them at the moment. And I have seen a tiny clink of light coming through when I do because I have to do some TikTok stuff for work, which, and when we were decided we're going to do TikTok, it was very much sort of, oh no, we're going to do TikTok. Like, someone here has got to like infiltrate this mass of 16 to 18 year olds. And they decided to choose me. But actually, it's the way that we present it is just so lighthearted, almost like I was almost worried that there's not enough history in it, but actually, you know, with loads of cultural references and loads of I can't think of one at the moment, but I think people do remember it more and they do engage with it more. So
I think you hit the nail on the head with the Top Gear analogy. Like, Top Gear is a car show, but in actual fact, it's really not. You know, it's an entertainment show with cars thrown in there. And I think to engage people, you're right. Like, I saw your TikTok, I think it was a TikTok or a reel you posted earlier. Was it 3 things about Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah.
So that was like, I don't know how long it was, like 20 seconds or something, but it was really engaging. And there was 3 like historical facts in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it works, right?
Yeah. I think that's the key thing. It's got to be entertaining. And I think it's got to be entertaining, and then it's got to be historic, but people don't realize it's historic. You've got to kind of slip that in secretly.
Yeah, that's it.
Of course, some people have tried to do this, but often I think what producers do is they get a comedian in, and then it's just too thin on actual history. Like, it's kind of funny, but I just don't think anyone's quite got the balance, and I'm sure it's really hard to do, but I would like to try and get that.
So you said earlier about some of the different things you managed to get involved with. Is there anything there that you do day to day that you think you're better at and your skills generally lie more towards?
I suppose in some ways history, I suppose editing and TV work can often be quite formulaic, whatever the opposite of being creative is. You know, you're just kind of, sometimes you're just editing, and I think some people in the industry aren't as creative as, I don't want to say they're not creative, but sometimes, maybe I feel like sometimes I've got loads of ideas and I know I feel annoying. I feel like I'm an annoying person sometimes because I just keep pestering people like, oh, should we do this? And they're probably just like, Alice, no, just, you know, we can't do everything. You know, even I actually dreamt about the idea for a documentary the other day, so I was like a bit worried about.
That's a sign you're working too much. Once you start dreaming about work,
I know.
You're again one of these people that we've had on the podcast, and we've had quite a few recently, I think, Jules, where they've taken something that they love and they enjoy, and they're applying it kind of like to a modern world, to the social media aspect, to like History Hits. You know, it's a great idea because it's going into a niche and really building that niche out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like,
and it shows you that you can, if you've got a passion, you can use all a different skill set and use the modern tools of social media and the internet to build a brand, right?
Yeah, completely. And it's amazing how there is such an appetite for History Hit. You know, we've only just got going really, but we've just scratched the surface, but it's going to be as big as Netflix soon, I'm sure.
I'll hold you to that.
And so you said the History Channel does podcasts and all these different sort of things.
Yeah, so I mean, so on the channel there's different podcast series. So the main one is on something called, well, it's Dan Snow, who's the guy who set it up, who's often on TV, who's been on TV for years. He just talks to the best historians out there, and we just talk about all the major big topics. That's literally everything. But we are launching other ones. We've got one on the ancient world, which is really successful, one on the world wars, and we're going to launch some stuff on the Renaissance, and I think the Georgian world probably, which hopefully all the Bridgerton fans can tap into.
That's it. Yes, jump on the trends. That's what you got to do.
So obviously you have to do a lot of research for different areas in history that you don't particularly know of. What are sort of your processes to learn about that, and how would you maybe say to other historians maybe going through university how they can tackle researching a new bit of history?
Well, that's interesting. I think the thing that I'm like really working on, I think, or the thing that we're doing in our world, it's not, as long as you've got a good resource, you're using a book that's definitely reliable. It's not, I don't feel like I do that much research because you've kind of established what has happened or what are the key points. And then the most important thing is building a narrative and building a good script. So obviously that has to be completely correct, but that's not really what I think I spend lots of the time doing. It's more putting it together, and then we talk to lots of experts and kind of, you know, knitting that together to make sense. So I think, you know, it's easy enough to write things academically. You know, everyone can kind of do that. Anyone who's done a history degree can do that. But I think for me, it's more about the kind of creative, artistic, narrative side of things.
I guess the people that are going to listen to this episode will be those that have a love of history and think, how can I make a career out of it? And I guess what we're saying here is, you know, when you think of a history career traditionally, you think about maybe being a lecturer, maybe being an author, but you've taken it into kind of the modern age, right? Being a producer, a presenter. And these opportunities are massive now with the likes of social media. Like you say, if you started a history TikTok, you could grow it into a business. So when people think about careers in history, they shouldn't necessarily think about having to be a lecturer or something like that. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, definitely. And the problem is if you search jobs on, you know, job search sites, whatever they may be, you search history and it comes up with teachers. It's always history teacher, head of history professor, stuff like that. And even on history websites where it's trying to help you with careers, they don't really branch out of that. And I think, to be honest, all through school, all through university, I don't think I was ever really given the kind of option to do what I'm doing now, and it was never really on the cards. Maybe because it's a bit, I suppose, I'm not really sure why. And yeah, I definitely say to people, you know, I'm doing something in some ways quite straightforward, being on history TV, but you can make history you can make the most exciting things, the most wacky, crazy ideas, and you could use history to do that. So, you know, maybe you could set up a kind of Glastonbury for history, or maybe you could set up a whole brand of clothing that's for history. And history is such a big market and a big kind of topic that people are so endlessly fascinated in. And of course, there's literally endless topics to work with. So I'll definitely say to people, you know, definitely don't be restricted to being bookish or academic if that's not for you, you know. And I've taken history and then I've gone to media because that's the thing that I'm interested in. But I equally could have gone from history to be setting up a business of clothing or something. I think you could do that. So, yeah.
And what are some of the personality traits that you see in yourself and some of those colleagues around you that you think really helped get to where you are now?
I think we're primarily in a creative business. So although it's history, I wouldn't say that we are, you know, it's the same sort of thing. We're not like bookish people necessarily. I think we always come up with lots of ideas. That's the most important thing. We have to come up with ideas all the time. And maybe that's for documentaries, maybe that's for, oh, we're going to this festival, this history festival, and we need to be the coolest tent there. Like, what are we going to do? Or we're at a shoot and we need another German soldier, but we haven't got one. What are we going to do? And then it's just kind of, you know, being spontaneous and being able to think on your feet. So I think if I was looking to recruit someone and if it was my business, I really want people who could think outside the box and definitely have a passion for history. And you do have to have a knowledge of history, but I would say creativity it's just so hard to find from people. I'm not saying I'm necessarily that person, but when you do see it, it's just so valuable in a company. So yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Is there actually a festival of history?
Yeah, well, there's Chalk Valley History Festival is probably the biggest one, and that's got a lot of speakers and kind of reenactments, and there's a flyover and all that kind of stuff. But actually, recently we've got into we've been in touch with all the reenactment events, the reenactment groups. So
yeah, that's got really big, hasn't it? That's like there's a massive presence on social media for reenactments now.
Yeah, so like there's the Viking Festival when all the Viking reenactment groups, they all gather in York. So I went to the Jorvik Viking Festival earlier this year.
That's pretty cool.
So last year, let's see. But yeah, no, so there's loads of events. That's the thing. Like if you, like you could, it's absolutely endless what you could do with history. So I definitely encourage people to think outside the box a bit more, you know, more than TV, more than books.
That's it. Julie's staring me down because he knows what I'm going to say. If you ever need 2 Vikings or 2 German soldiers, we are available, and we will come to the festival.
You have to have a German accent though. We had to get ours to.
I'm not going to do that because I'll brutalise it.
Mate. I've got the beard. That's the only reason I can pass. I was a Viking.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, you could be a Viking.
So what are some of the biggest positives and opportunities you've had out of what you're doing? I mean, working with the likes of Dan Snow and these amazing historians must be up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really awesome to work with someone like Dan Snow, and in our, we work with loads of freelancers, and they've been in the business for like ages. They've done everything that you can do. They've done some amazing things, and it's just, sometimes I'm there as what they call a spare pair of hands on shoot, and I just have to help them and talk to them, and I learn from them all the time. So it's just so, you just pick up so much from being on the ground running with these sorts of things. So that's really a great opportunity. But wait, sorry, you have to repeat the question. What were you asking me?
That's all right. Some of the biggest positives and opportunities you've had out of it so far.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe this is something which goes for all sorts of all industries, is being in a small company rather than being in a big corporation. If I always think if I'd been in the BBC or ITV and I'd gone in as a researcher, I'd still be a researcher now, and I'd have got very good at being a researcher, but I'd still be doing that, and maybe I'd now be able to move up to helping produce stuff, and then maybe I'd be able to, a year on, I'd be able to like work on a different show, so it's you learn how these big productions are made, but you don't necessarily get all this different experience. And what you get from a small company, and I've seen it with people in other industries as well, is that they're so much more flexible. You can talk to the boss, we're all in the same room, and you can come up with an idea even if you're the intern, and they might do it. So I think I've had really good opportunities from it being so flexible, and I can put my ideas forward and they come to fruition, which is amazing, and
definitely.
I want to do this documentary and we'll do it. That's great. Yeah.
Earlier when you were talking about some of your things you do on an average day, and you're just listing off all these different things, I was like, wow, you are getting involved in everything there, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think that I mean, I know my friend who works in property, obviously completely different, but he works in a small company, and he has been put so far in the deep end that he's just got so much responsibility compared to if you'd been in a big company. And I think everybody could take that on board, really.
I think that's great advice. I started out working for big corporates in the city, and I've recently moved into a different sector, and I'm working for a small to medium-sized company. Yeah. It is like the best decision I've ever made, because you just get chucked in, and it's like sink or swim, and you can chat to the boss, you can put ideas forward, and like you say, you can just, if you've got a good idea, they're like, yeah, go for it. It's fantastic, and you see the change and the impact you have.
Yeah,
which
completely.
is cool.
I guess not everyone's made for that, but I think for me in doing, when we're doing creative stuff, it's definitely really important for me.
And so what would be some of the less favourable aspects that you've found of the industry so far?
Yeah, I know. I saw you put that as a question, and I genuinely find it quite hard to know. And I don't know if that's because I have only had the particular view that I've had, and I haven't had anything else. I suppose if you look at to be honest, I genuinely don't know, but I assume that it's, I don't know where it comes in terms of salary, maybe that's why people are put off it. If you're being a banker, definitely are more. I think, you probably go in at a grad, I guess most people probably go in at a graduate salary, like low 20s or something, but maybe in other jobs you can go through it a bit faster. You get a pay, an increase in salary quicker over the years, and I maybe in TV you don't. That's just my feeling, but then I think there is a potential to also earn a lot of money. I mean, this is the world of Netflix, and they must be earning a lot of money there. And I guess if you look at my potential trajectory as being either a presenter or being a producer, if you look to the end of that, some of the BBC presenters get paid so much money. Obviously that is the extreme, but then also, you could go into producing, set up your own production company, work at Netflix, as a
And
producer or something.
you're involved in a business at, you know, you say it's 3 or whatever years old. You're involved in an early stage business of something that is potentially massive, which is so cool, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. And I guess also what I sometimes think, like, if I set up that business, I could be in this position in 5 years' time, which is just crazy. I mean, it's the same with every single every business, but I guess because it's all media and it's all online, like, it seems like it might happen a bit quicker. I don't know what the negatives. I really don't know what negatives are. I guess.
Well, I think for me, I can without a doubt hear like the passion you have for not only the history and the work you do, which, going back to the money, basically, you know, it sounds like you don't work a day in your life. You are absolutely loving what you're doing. You're fairly fresh out of university, and you've basically just hit the ground running, really.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. You know, I mean, I'm really trying to think of negatives, but I think maybe I'm really, really happy in my job, but I'm definitely happier in my job now than I was a year ago, and that's because the stuff that I happened to be doing a year ago, I just wasn't as interested in, and I've really I'm really kind of hit the point where I'm really interested in all. You know, I've kind of got to this point where I'm passionate about the things I'm doing. I want to do the things that I'm doing. Whereas, you know, for example, last year I was doing podcasts, which is just, for me, it's like not as interesting, but, you know, for some people it might be. So
Ouch.
Maybe it's a case of, yeah, sorry. I had a lot of podcasts and it was like, just not my vibe, but it's okay. But yeah, maybe it's a case of just finding that balance of definitely doing the thing you're interested in. I don't know.
And obviously you're doing both presenting and producing at History Hit at the moment. What for you is your favourite out of those two?
That's a good question. Well, I think produce. I wouldn't. I don't know, because the thing is, people say presenting, but presenting doesn't just include. Actually, I think it's wrong to say presenting and producing, but it's just that these are the roles that they would assign you to if you had to fill in a form and it had a drop down menu. You'd have to click those. But actually, what I do, I make documentaries, and that involves thinking of ideas, writing it, presenting it, organising the shoots, editing it, putting it out, deciding what the thumbnail is going to look like, deciding what the title is going to be. Sometimes the most difficult thing.
Yeah, they are so hard to come up with, aren't they?
Yeah, like thinking of a catch line as well. But, you know, I do all of those things, and I do them at different levels all the time. So tomorrow I'm a presenter, but I might not be a presenter for the next 2 months. I don't know. You know, it just depends what's happening in the history world.
That's it. So if somebody's listening to this and they think, you know, they love history and they're thinking they want to get involved with a career in history, what kind of things can they do if they're at university or going into university to make themselves stand out, to sort of go for future roles like you're doing, or even maybe traditional history roles?
Well, I think there's people tend to be very cautious about jobs in terms of they wait for an advert for a job and then they apply, and maybe they're applying with a degree in history from good university, whatever it is. But actually, you can't just be that. Like, you've got to be. I think you've got to be way more proactive, and that's what I've always been. You know, I've always sent so many emails, so many punchy emails to, you know, not just someone who I know at X company. I sent it to the head of the company. People like Classic FM. I once sent an email to Classic FM, the guy who runs it, and he replied to me, and it was, you know,
wow.
I got. Yeah, and it's like 9 times out of 10 people don't reply. But my top tip would be send some really like punchy emails, maybe because you want to write some articles, or maybe you've just got some ideas. I don't know, like you want to do work experience with them, or just sort of take the initiative on it all a bit more. And also, you know, to be honest, I did do quite a lot of history stuff. Like, I took a show to the Edinburgh Fringe, I set up a magazine, but anybody could do that, you know. It just takes the initiative to do it. It's obviously a lot of work, but now I can say to people, I mean, even if your show is terrible, this is what I was saying, like, even if your show is terrible and nobody comes, you've then had the experience of putting on a show, presenting history to members of the public, you know, heckling people on the Royal Mile of Edinburgh saying, come to my show because history is so important.
What was that like at Fringe? Did you enjoy it? Was it good?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really, really fun. And, you know, that's why I'm so encouraged about history and the public, because I really noticed how people really enjoyed this kind of history being presented in a more interesting way. And, you know, the magazine I did, it was history in a kind of, I was based it on Closer magazine. So it had loads of gossip columns.
That's quite cool.
That's actually something I want to touch on, is obviously you and all your peers coming out of university, you all had a history degree, but there's something that you did which probably none of the others did, and that was do this magazine. And I was wondering, could you just basically just a little bit more information on what it was, and if there was anything other and similar that you did to really help you stand out in your field?
So yeah, the magazine was called The Plague, and the strapline was for history that gets under your skin, and it was based on, yeah, it's quite relevant at the moment. I don't know if it should have like a rerun in these pandemic times, but it was I basically bought a copy of Closer magazine and designed it, like just completely copied the layout and just designed it like that. And it had, yeah, it was really funny actually. It had, you know, articles like Jane Austen interviewing Keira Knightley, or, you know, Napoleon's vegan diet or something, or like I can't even remember. It was just so silly. Like some stories about, you know, interviewing the most crazy fresher in Edinburgh, and it'd be like Charles II or something. Kind of like the Tab, if you ever read the Tab, it's just those kind of articles all the time. And yeah, I just distributed it in, like, you know, all the universities all around the country. And then which was really fun, you know, got loads of good feedback. And also, this is another tip, definitely, if people give you really good feedback, definitely just like jot them down, because I found it so useful to be able to say, this member of the public said this about me doing history, and that has been useful. But yeah, and then the key thing that I did is I entered it into, they have these student publication awards, where it's normally things like, you know, magazines or newspapers which have been set up for 100 years, or at Durham University or something, or whatever. So, and they've got a team of 20 people. So it was quite a thing to enter a magazine where it's just me. And I kind of, you know, I suppose I probably shouldn't have had a chance to win anything, considering there were so many other people entering. But I did win an award for, I can't actually remember now. But then I could then say I founded this award-winning history magazine.
Yeah.
And it's like, it sounds really good to say that to people, but you know, there's no reason why anyone else couldn't have done that. And I would really encourage people to just do it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And since leaving university and, you know, going into interviews and that, was it sort of like a talking topic with people?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. I haven't really done that many interviews. I had one interview, which was History Hit. So like, but I think, you know, I think they might have been impressed by that because it was so specific to history.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, there's also, I did the magazine, but I also made the most of it in the way that I sent it to a lot of people. I sent it to, because it was satire, I sent it to Ian Hislop and like people at Private Eye and a few other people like that who kind of are in that field. And they responded and really liked it and stuff. So, and I probably could have pushed that a bit more and said, can I have work experience or whatever? So I think you've always got to think where this kind of thing might lead.
What's your best tip for finding people's contact details when you were trying to get, you know, you're contacting these people that it's not easy to find them all the time?
Yeah, I know. I think to be honest, I'm not really sure. I normally would just go. Lots of the people I've contacted have worked at papers, so you can often work it out. Sure. Because you can see like the Telegraph. It's always like first name dot and then name at telegraph.co.uk or something like that.
Yeah.
And you normally know quite quickly because you get a you know, those emails that bounce back saying this email address doesn't exist. But often you can look at press packs, and that's got people. And often I just, you know, if it's just inquiries at something, you can just send that in and just send it to the guy in charge or the girl in charge. Like, why not? That's what I do, and it does work. And also people always send really boring emails. Like there's often for lots of things there's a formula for writing book proposals. There's a formula to write it. You can Google how to write a book proposal and they'll tell you such a boring way to write it. And I've never really believed in that. And I think that's paid off. I've always written really exciting emails, because in the world which I'm in, where you're writing, that's part of the skill. You've got one email to show that you can do it. So I think be really punchy with how you write, say, just write in an interesting, exciting, enthusiastic way, whatever that might be.
And what's something that's not in the job description that you never expected to be doing at this role?
I'm not sure. There wasn't really a job role.
That's it. Yeah, it can be that there's no job description, so you just had to get stuck in.
Yeah. I think when I first started, I was writing articles. I think that's what it was, really. But
all these things have come into place as you've grown more in the company, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's just whatever needs to be done, I kind of do. And I think it's a really good way to run a company. I mean, I know lots of small companies do that, but I think it's hard. I don't know how big corporate companies could still take hold of that, because obviously it's harder once it's bigger and there's just more people and there's more admin, there's more departments. But if they could have a sense of being a bit more flexible with things, it'd be a really good thing. But.
So how was the first interview you did with History Hit? Was that difficult, or is it like does Dan Snow sit down with you and chat, or how did it go?
No, not at all. It was I just emailed and I said, I'm this like history gal who's really into history, and this is me, this is what I've done. And then the chap who's in charge said, can you come and meet me? And I said, yeah, which was, I happened to be in London, so I just went like the next day or something. And then he said, well, you could start tomorrow, but someone else is starting tomorrow, so can you start on Wednesday? And so I started on Wednesday, and that was it.
Cool. That's cool.
So yeah, maybe that's another tip. I think it's good to reply, if you need to go and meet someone, just do it now, like seize the moment. I messaged someone. I realized in my local paper there was a big TV producer in our local town, and I emailed him and he said, yeah, you can come and see me whenever, just drop in. And I was like, how about half an hour? And then I just saw him that afternoon, and then
perfect.
Which maybe there's no time like the present on this.
That's it. You've got to grab the opportunities, right? That's great advice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it all the time. It's hard work, replying to emails all the time. But I try and do that as much as I can.
And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, and I think I wish I'd gone in earlier. I wasn't, or not earlier, but I wish I'd known that I was definitely going to do this earlier, because as a history student, everyone becomes a lawyer. As I've said, all my friends became lawyers. They are currently studying to become lawyers. And at the time, it seems like a good option, because once you get into law, doing your GDL or whatever you do, it's like it feels like you're set. You're on course. Your life's in control.
Yeah.
But actually, I felt that I found quite anxious about that for quite a long time, because everyone else seemed to feel like they're in control of things. But I'm just really glad that I persevered with doing something more creative and had faith in this. And actually, I wish that I kind of knew earlier that there were opportunities like this out there. So I wish I just kind of pursued making TV stuff on my own. At the moment I'm doing freelance work for some other museums and stuff, but I wish that I could have started that like years ago. But then, I didn't know. That's easy to say in hindsight, that's what history's about. So I guess actually what I wish I'd done more work experience, even in industries I didn't want to go into, like law, say, because at least that you don't want to do it, or you do want to, it just clarifies it a bit more. And it's such a mystery, me saying this now, I literally don't know what other people do in some of their jobs. I just it's it would be quite good to know.
Well, if you want to find out, there's about 60 episodes back catalogue.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, or listen to the podcast.
That's it. So thank you so much for coming on, Alice. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you and find out about what you do.
Oh no, that's great to chat to you. I really hope loads of people go into the world of history because it's definitely worth it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you on social media and your TikToks?
Oh yeah. Well, you can follow me on history_Alice on Twitter and Instagram. But you can watch the History Hit TikTok channel. It's just History Hit. So do give it a look.
And where can people find History Hit if they want to go and have a look and sign up?
Yeah, do have a look. It's just you just need to search History Hit into Google and it will come up, History Hit TV, and it's all there.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to chat.
Cheers. Speak soon. Bye.